conversation here at the CEO Summit focuses on making Michigan a top 10 state for jobs, income, and a strong economy. In order to do that, though, business leaders for Michigan point to the need for improvements in education. The state has got to produce more educated and skilled talent and improve K-12 performance. My next guest is at the forefront of the efforts to achieve a quality educational system. I'd like to welcome Amber Arellano, Executive Director of the Education Trust Midwest. Great to see you.
Hi, Stephen. Thanks for having me.
So right there in the open, I sort of laid out what the challenge is for us here in the state of Michigan. I feel like this is a challenge that's been around forever, and we only are slipping backward, it seems, on it. I mean, we really are falling behind when you measure our performance by what other states are doing. They're taking such leaps forward, and we are kind of staying in place.
Right, especially the real top performers. You know, when you think about a state like Massachusetts, that if it was its own country, it would be one of the top 6 countries in the world. Top performing state in the country. It has been now for well over a decade, and yet it's still one of the top improving states, so that it's still getting this incredible growth, you know, almost every year for its students.
Even at the top.
Even at the top. And you think about that, what that means in terms of students' lives. So for example, an African American student in Boston by 4th grade is almost 3 years ahead in instruction compared to an African American student in Detroit. And you think about that, the cumulative effect of that, right, on a kid's life, what that means in real terms, right, in real outcomes. It's the difference of graduating from high school and not graduating from high school. It's a difference of reading and not reading. It's a difference of going to a community college versus going to, say, like a 4-year university at Michigan State, where you might have a better chance to, you know, not only get a bachelor's, but better position for a master's degree in a profession. So all of these things that are so critical for helping kids reach their dreams, right, and making them successful in a knowledge economy. Yeah. It's just one of the most urgent issues of our time, I think. And so, yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's a top priority for us, but it is for a growing number of leaders and organizations in the state.
So if you sort of extend that analysis, the difference between Massachusetts and Michigan in terms of outcomes, what are they doing to get those outcomes that we seem unwilling or unable to do?
Yeah. So I think it's on both the support and accountability side, and it's on the investment side. So, you know, as you may know, more than 20 years ago, there was a grand bargain in Massachusetts between the business community and the K-12 community. That's right. And the bargain was the business community and Republicans said to Democrats and the K-12 community, we're willing to invest significantly more, not a little bit more, significantly more, including in a much more equitable school system, so that we're going to really quadruple down on poor kids to make sure that they're reaching new standards. But in return from that, we're going to put in a robust accountability system. We're going to put into place transparency that's never existed before. We're going to raise the standards, and we're going to expect all of our teachers to meet those new standards, right? We're going to put systems of professional development and accountability for teachers and for their practice. And over time, over the next 3 to 5 years, things started inching up, and frankly, like, they never looked back. I mean, they just kept seeing improvement, and then they kept doubling down. And you know, it's like the flywheel effect, right? And so success begets success. And so so the business community Republicans were more willing to invest even more, and they've continued to double down in terms of investments, especially for poor children, for low-income communities. But they've also continued to refine those sorts of improvement systems to be now one of the most sophisticated public school systems in the world. Yeah,
and it's important to note that this was done under a Republican governor.
That's right.
In concert with the business community, which is generally more Republican than Democrat. This was not some crazy liberal idea.
Not at all.
This was Republicans saying this is important because we need better outcomes for everybody.
That's right.
And they really forced it on lots of other people who were opposed and took that political risk.
Yeah, and you think about that kind of, you know, I think there's this question mark now in Michigan is, are we in that kind of a moment? So on one hand, I think we are in some ways, in that we're sort of seeing an unprecedented number of business leaders and organizations more engaged in education and the big questions of our time around public education than we have certainly since before the Great Recession. And a growing commitment across many sectors in the state. On the other hand, we're also living through what is arguably one of the most divided, politically tension-filled times, certainly maybe in my lifetime or your lifetime. And so that kind of bargain, I think in some ways is much more difficult. And there are a lot of leaders and organizations trying to figure out if that kind of thing can happen, and where is, and if that kind of big grand bargain is not possible, where are the areas of consensus where we can work together?
Subsets of it.
And so I think one area is, when you think about early reading and this, the goal of making sure that every kid in Michigan is reading on grade level by third grade. There's a real bipartisan consensus around that. No one says, young kids shouldn't all read.
Right.
Yeah, no, I don't think they should read. No one ever says that, right? There are big ideological debates about other issues in public education, but that one is there's a lot of consensus. It's common sense. So I think that might be one of the areas where people can really come together and lean in on.
Yeah, but even on that issue, we can't agree on how to do it. I mean, you've got a legislature that says just hold all the kids back in third grade if they don't meet the standards. Of course, educational professionals would say that's absolutely the wrong way to do it, and that seems to be the tension that exists in all of these conversations in this state is, do we follow best practice or do we follow political instinct?
That's right. And that exact question about, do we follow best practice? Do we follow what the research and what these leading states show us versus what's politically convenient, right? What's easy, right? That's the tension. And I think third grade reading is a great example. I think your point about retention is a great one. This school year is the school year where hundreds of Michigan parents are expected to get letters in the mail saying, your kid's not on track to read by third grade. Yeah. My daughter's one of the students that may get that kind of letter in the next 2 years. She's in second grade. She's in a Michigan public school. And so you can bet that we're reading every night. Like, I don't want to get that letter, right? But we know that kids of color and that kids who are coming into the system far behind because of through no fault of their own. Their parents may not read. Their houses may not be filled with books, right? They may not have gone to, a very expensive preschool like my daughter did, right? That we could afford. A lot of people can't afford to do that for their kids, and so they're already coming into the system well behind their affluent peers.
And now you're going to punish them further.
And that's just, exactly, and that I think that's the problem with retention in a state that's not doing significant.
Not investing up front.
That's not doing significantly better, right? And so in a place like Florida, there was sort of an unbelievably effective and successful efforts to really get teachers following best practice, schools following best practice, investments in making sure that kids were reading on grade level before they put retention into place, right? And they were a fast improving state. We're the opposite. We've been doing the opposite. We're a low performing, low improving state, right? In a state where we're now one of the most unequal states in terms of how we invest in poor children versus affluent children, and yet we've put the accountability on the backs of poor kids in many ways.
Poor kids and parents, yeah. We could talk, I know, for hours about this,
yes,
and we have before. But we're out of time on the show. But thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.